Thank you so much for joining today. This is Zero to Hero session 3. I call it the Power Automate Adventure, where we're gonna hopefully go from level 0 to expert in a few weeks, learning from the pros on this one. Today, it is my honor to host Yash Agarwal. Yash is an MVP. If you haven't heard of Yash, I don't know if you know your stuff in Power Automate. I'm joking, but Yash has a lot of recordings on Power Automate, on Canvas as well, and many other things. We have the pleasure of hosting events together in the past before, and he knows his stuff. I mean, needless to say, I mean, who am I to attest? But I mean, from what I've seen, my humble opinion is to say that he's an expert in what he does. So if you are interested not only in learning in this session but continue to learn, I would strongly advise you to follow him on all the social channels. Yash, the floor is yours. Take it away, and thank you again for donating your time for us.
Thank you so much, Victor. So it's a pleasure presenting here. Um, I'm going to share my screen, so please let me know when you can see it. And there we go.
Yep.
Okay, so all right. Again, welcome everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit about Power Automate and Dataverse today. Obviously, everything cannot be accommodated into a single session. So what we'll do is we'll just go over a little bit of basic stuff first, and then I'll give you some Easter eggs where you can just, follow a couple of steps and see what magic you can do with Power Automate, custom actions, out of the box solutions, and Dataverse. So let's get started with this. Um, okay, there we go. So a little bit about the community mentorship program, and Victor has been doing this for a while now. I believe I don't even count or remember the number of months or days or years that we've been doing this, but I mean, it has been a great journey so far. And so please stay tuned again to the Power community for more such sessions and more such events coming in the future. A little bit about myself. So I'm Yash Agarwal and I'm a Power Platform consultant from India. I'm a Microsoft MVP and MCT for business applications and also a super user on the Power Apps and Power Automate community forums. So if you ever wanted to reach out to me related to any of the issues or some nice cool tips and tricks that you want to give me about Power Automate apps or anything on the Power Platform, feel free to tag me on the communities. You can follow me on Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn and so on. And then getting on to the agenda for today. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Dataverse connector a little bit in deep and see what all features or what all solutions are offered by as an out-of-the-box connector from Power Automate, and whatever is not available, how can we achieve that using any custom build solutions. So let's see what all direct connectors are available for Dataverse, what are the direct triggers and actions that we can use, and then let's see that, okay, if there's something that you cannot do using these actions and there's still an opportunity or a choice to implement such a feature, how we can do that using custom solutions. And we'll see a couple of nice demos as well. And then jumping into basically what connectors do we have for Dataverse right now on Power Automate. So there's two connectors. One is Dataverse and the other one is Dataverse Legacy. So basically, the Dataverse connector that we have right now is the extended or the expanded version of the previously existing CDS current environment connector. That's what it was called before this. And this particular connector can be used to connect to Dataverse in the environment in which you're creating the flow. Therefore, the current environment part over here. And basically, the benefit of using this one is you can directly add your flows into solutions and you can connect to tables within that specific environment only. That's the only challenge or limitation here. But compared to your Dataverse legacy connector, the Dataverse connector, which is connecting to your current environment, offers you a couple of more actions comparatively. We'll take a look at that in a couple of minutes. And then a little bit about the Dataverse legacy connector. It is an extended version of our CDS connector, using which we could connect to data from multiple or from different environments also based on the same tenant. So as long as you're on that tenant, you create flow in any environment. So long as you have an assigned security role on a Dataverse table in any of the environment, you could access that data over here. So these are just two name changes right now over here for the Dataverse and Dataverse legacy connectors. Now, basically, what all actions or triggers are offered by these connectors? Let's directly take a look. We'll come back to custom solutions in a bit. So I have my Power Automate screen here. I'm going to start by creating a new flow. So let's take an example of an instant cloud flow first. And or else let's move the um, trigger as well. First, we'll see what all triggers are available in our native Dataverse connector, which connects to the current environment. So as you can see, we have three triggers over here, which is when a flow step is run from a business process flow. So you would use this trigger at a point where you wanted to configure a business process flow for a model-driven app. And on that model-driven app, you have this business process flow split into different stages where you're building a guided experience for somebody who's using the system. And let's say if they've completed 2 or 3 stages on that business process flow, they want to run an automation that performs another set of actions. You could run this flow step from within that business process flow itself. The second one is when a row is added, modified, or deleted. This is basically to trigger this flow on an event basis where when you create a new row in your table, or if you're modifying something on a table, or let's say if you're deleting a table, you could trigger this flow off. The last one is when an action is performed. So there are inbound and outbound actions that you can perform on Dataverse tables. And based on that action performed, you could trigger this trigger a flow using this one. And then if we look at the other one, which is our Dataverse legacy, so we'll be able to find it here. So this is a little grayed out. I don't know the purpose of that, but it's gray, unfortunately. And it has 4 actions over here, which is when a row is added, deleted, modified, or selected. So the 3 items over here, which is when a row is added, deleted, or modified, is basically, again, event-based. Whenever you add a row, or you modify it or delete it, the flow can be triggered. But this one, which is when a row is selected, is kind of a manual one. And again, it has a correlation with a model-driven app. And you've built a model-driven app. Now you want to run a flow on a specific record that has been selected on the app. So you can select that. And in the flows tab, you'll be able to see the flow, which is using this when a row is selected, row is selected trigger. And then after that, you trigger that flow and you set up the entire automation based upon the use case of the scenario. Now, if we take a quick look at what all actions are available in our Microsoft Dataverse connector, the current environment one, you'll see there's a list of actions of which the important, I mean, all are important, obviously, but most used ones are the add a new row, deleting rows. This one is a fairly new one, which is downloading a file or an image from a record, since you're now able to create that on records. And then if you wanted to get a row by ID, where you just provide the table from which you want to get the row and the unique identifier, which is the GUID of that record. And then the list rows, of course, to list rows from that table, you can perform a bunch of actions over here, like filtering that based upon a particular status code, or getting the top 5 records or top 5 rows from that table, and so on. And then these are two which are perform a bound action and an unbound action. So there is a basic set of actions which are pre-programmed, I'll say, on Dataverse. So you can call those actions and pass certain inputs and outputs here. Yeah, somebody is having a question. Okay, I think not. I'll continue. And then, as you can see here, we have this relate rows and then there's unrelate rows. So obviously Dataverse is a relational database, and you can create a n is to 1 relationship or a 1 is to n relationship and n is to n relationships between tables. So if you've already created some rows and then based upon a logic flow, you wanted to relate a few rows. So you wanted to, let's say, assign something to a user, you could use the relate rows action. If you wanted to unassign something, you could use the unrelate rows action. Then we have the update a row, and update a row is, again, you provide the GUID and you provide the table name. It lists you all the fields or columns that you can update on that table. And then finally, so we left two. The one is the search row. So I'm yet to figure this out. But the upload a file or an image is, again, so related to this download a file or an image. So you can now create a file type field on your file type column, basically on your table. And if you wanted to upload something, you could use this. And then there's a perform change set request. So this is a very interesting one, and I've seen very less use of this, but it's like, let's say if you have a set of actions where you want to create a record, and then you want to create another one in another table, but then and let's say if you also want to update something, but due to some reason the update didn't go through and it errored out, so it rolls back the entire set of actions which is a part of this change set request. Now let's take a look at comparing this with the other legacy connector that we have, what all actions it provides us as a part of that bundle. So again, we are going to look at the Dataverse legacy connector over here. So you have those just general one, you add a new row, you get row, you list rows, and you update or delete. That's it. You cannot do anything apart from these 5 items using this legacy connector. So let's now get into some hands-on over here and see how we can use individual actions and what are some cool tips and tricks that you can use while you're using or building automation on top of Dataverse tables. So what I'll do is first I'll go back to my flows, and we are in the default environment. So I'll switch on from here and go to a test environment that I have created here. So let's see if I'm able to create a solution. Okay, so it takes its own sweet time sometimes, but all right, here we are. So I'll just quickly create a new solution and name it as a test solution. We'll select the common data service as a publisher and create this. As a first step, what I want to do is I want to create a new table into this database. So into the solution. So I'm going to create a table here, and let's name the table as customer requests. After that, we already have a name column that gets created. And then in the table type, we have user or team owned. So every row that is created as a part of this table will have an ownership on a user or a team. And this can be used for security roles or assigning a request to a particular user in a team and so on. And then I'll just go ahead and create this. So while, okay, I believe this was the wrong environment to choose because it's a Dataverse for Teams environment. Extremely sorry about that. I'll go to this one, the MPP project 2020. All right. So in this one, we'll create a solution. Basically, when you create a Dataverse for Teams environment, you can access those artifacts from the Flow portal, but not from the Power Apps portal. So let's create a quick solution over here and name it as a test solution, and quickly select a publisher and create. And in the test solution, we are going to add a new table. So, oh, all right. Anyways, let's go ahead. We should be able to use it. So in this one, again, I'll create a customer request table. And we went through all the items before. So quick create it. And while this is happening, we can go ahead and create, okay, we cannot probably create that. So it'll take a few seconds or a few minutes to provision that table, and then we can start creating columns on that. Okay, there you go. So again, this one's also a Dataverse for Teams environment, so that's why it's already bringing certain items. So anyways, I'll add another column here. This time we're going to name it as request priority. And I'm going to select the type as choice. So we're going to also see how our how the complex data types work on a table versus how we can work with single line of text kind of fields and so on. So I'm going to create a new choice for this. So let's say high priority and then add a new one, and let's say medium, and add another one and say low. Okay, and save this. And will not assign a default value, or let's do that probably. Okay, we'll just leave it as is for now and hit done. And then apart from request priority, what we can do is we can add another one and say request description for this one and make it as a text area along with increasing the length to 1000 characters and again hit done. And lastly, we'll create a lookup type field. So um, let's do this assigned to. And what we're going to do is we're going to create it as of type lookup, and the related table is going to be a user because we can assign it to a user. We can assign this request to a user. So that's why. And done. And lastly, I also want to create a date type field. So let's say request updated date or request. Yeah, let's do target resolve date, something of that sort. Make it a little easier. Let's put it as resolve by date. So, it makes more sense that way. And I'm going to select it as date only and done. So we have a couple of types of fields already existing on this. So like the created by, the created on, these get created by default when you create a table in Dataverse. We'll take a look at that as well when we are interacting with the data in Flow. And I'll click Save Table here. And after saving this table, what we'll do is we'll shift back to our solution and then hit Publish Customizations. And in the meanwhile, let's duplicate this tab and go back to my flows. Same time, I'm going to um, open up my table here. So, down and we were looking for the customer request. So if I go back one step and open up the users table first, I'll be able to see whoever is a part of this environment or this tenant is going to be. Okay, probably I cannot see that at this point. So we're going to go back to our customer requests table and let's see if we're able to access that. All right, views and relationships and columns. So I'm going back now, and since we cannot access it there, let's open it up here itself. Okay, cool. Now what we're going to do is I'm coming back here on flow and let's start creating a new flow. Let's use this one, the list rows. Okay, better to create a new one. So what we're going to do is first we're going to create a new item here. And for that, I'm going to use this Dataverse connector. And before that, let's do a list rows first to get the list of all the users that exist in this environment. So select your Microsoft Dataverse connector and select list rows. Okay. Ta-da. While it's doing this, we'll open. Okay, here we have it. Um, okay, okay, okay. All right. So we have our users table here, and what happens is when you use the list rows action and run this flow, when you're going to try to see what the output data was, it is not going to show you that. It just shows your status code. So what we'll do is we'll add a compose action here and we'll just put all the items here itself. And just in case this does not work, we'll just add another one and add a control over here to add the apply to each loop. And that will loop over all the items here, and another compose action to store individual values. So I'm going to put current item, and then we just save our flow. And you'll see that it gives you a warning message that says that you can use an OData filter to improve the performance and just get the rows after filtering. But we just have minimal number here, so this is only for a test purpose. We'll quickly check the user data. So as you can see, okay, we have 17 users. Nice. So you'll see that since the data that's returned has a lot of number of characters, it does not show it over here. If I click to download here, it's going to show me this, which is a little hard to read for the human eyes. So we're going to just go back and open up the compose actions. So you'll see here that in the compose actions, you'll get all the details of all users that exist in this particular environment. And but anyways, what we're going to do is come here, Control F and search for my name. And there you go. Let's keep this as is for now because we're going to use it at a later stage. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll be able to see the data that it has brought. But it does not return the entire detail. So another thing that we can do is edit and finally use filter. Now in the users table, if I go back here and okay, not here then probably. Come back to tables and open up the user table. We'll be able to see that there's a full name or it doesn't show on Dataverse for Teams environments anyway. So we're going to come here and filter rows and filter on primary, or let's say, yeah, let's do primary email address. And this one, from the outputs, you can search primary email, and the JSON is internal email address is the name of the field. So in the filter rows, I'm going to put internal email address EQ, my email address. Now let's test this. Perfect. So we just have one record this time, and probably, oh my God, again, not the best idea. So what we're going to do is edit it again and just get rid of the current item from here and um, search for user. We'll be able to get the unique identifier and then again test it. Basically, through this activity, what we're doing is we're trying to get the GUID that belongs to my username. And once I have it, um, here you'll see that this is the user account and this is the GUID. Now what we'll do is we'll just duplicate this and start creating a new flow so that we can add a new record into our newly created table. So again, we'll just use a manually trigger flow and search for Dataverse. And this time, look for add a new row. Again, select the newly created customer requests table, and it's going to list out all the required fields or whatever fields you have. In the name field, I can just give a brief description of the request that the customer is raising. So let's say package not received. And so this is the interesting part over here. So when you're working with the Dataverse current environment connector, you'll actually have to pass the assignment in a certain way such that it relates the record. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type system users here, because system users is the internal name of the user entity or user table. And in these brackets, I'm going to pass on the GUID. So if you were having a dependent flow where you're getting this data from a previous action, so you can directly just reference the record ID over here. And then this customer request is going to be the unique identifier for this record itself. So what we're going to do is finally put the request priority in place. So you'll see that we already have these values, but once the flow runs, I'll show you this, that this actually is just a label, and the actual value that gets patched to Dataverse is an integer and a number. So I'll put the value as low, and yeah, we have this request description. So a new request for so and so customer. Let's just put a test email address here. And you can set up this flow running on a shared mailbox where all the customer requests come in, and from there you can directly add a new row into Dataverse, and that can be assigned to a tech team or depending upon the customer service request team. And this flow can also be used in conjunction with a Power Virtual Agent, where your customer is interacting with the virtual agent and they're trying to file a new request, and they can do that so by providing data to the bot, and then the bot collects all the data and uses Power Automate to push data to Dataverse finally. And we have this part where resolved by data is there. So if I wanted to pass a date time data or a date data to Dataverse date field, it needs to be in the format of year dash month dash date. So we're going to use the UTC, or let's say add days first, because we want to add days to current time. And we're going to do UTC now and comma. We'll have to pass the integer number here. So let's say 7 over, and then finally format this date time. So we're going to use the format date time function for that, and your original date time string, which is formatted as ISO 8601. And this format is basically year dash month dash date, and there's a alphabet T. After that, it's hours, minutes, and seconds, and finally the zone by time zone represented as Z. So we have this format date time function here. We have our date string. Just put a comma here, and in these quotes, we'll put 4 Ys for the year, dash 2 M's in caps for the month, and then DD for the day. So you'll have to note that we are using caps lock on for month because if you use the small one, it treats that as minutes. And okay, so after we create this new row, what I want to do is add a compose action and get all the outputs. So let's search for body and put it here and save and test now. So you'll see that it should create a record unless there's any errors that we'll have to debug. But okay, it ran successfully. It created the record in Dataverse with all these inputs. Package not received, and it has been assigned to this user. Then there's a request description. You'll see that request priority has an integer as we were talking about. But then in the body, you'll see these details over here. So can we expand this? We cannot. Let's do this. Control C, open up a JSON reader. So you can beautifully, verify JSON. I'll just paste this. Okay, that's interesting. Beautify this. So you see it has a lot of content over here, but the important one is there's GUIDs for owning data wherever there's a relational table that's associated, and this is the entire output that we have here. So I have put a resolved by date over here on the date only field, but it still has added this timestamp over here in UTC time zone because that's the time when it got created. And you'll see that it has added 7 days to today, which was at that point yesterday for me. And if I scroll further down, I have the modified by to my name, but Let's further scroll. The request priority is over here, and you'll see that I have this item also, which is the label. But now if I go back to my flow here, um, and open it again in edit mode, if I wanted to add, if I wanted to get the, let's say what was the request priority, so it's going to return um, the number to me. Let's just quickly test this, and this time I'm going to put it as received one. So you'll see that it has returned a number instead of the actual label, but this number may not be very intuitive to work with. So what you can do is, after adding this new row or basically using any action, you have the entire part of the body. So this is being returned by the action, but it is not, but everything in this body that is returned is not a part of the dynamic content that displays from where you can select and add it to the compose action. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to come back over here. This is the key that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to directly copy this over and come back to my flow, edit it, and so you'll see that for the request priority, okay, let's just add a comment here onto this action and paste the key. But you'll see that we have this as outputs of add a new row slash body slash so and so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this entire thing, remove this in the expression, again paste it back, get rid of the at the rate and the brace, and from the back as well, and get rid of everything from these two quotes. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go back to this page, copy this over, bring it back, okay, wrong tab, go back, and paste it in these two without the double quotes, of course. So I'll just do this and okay, and this is going to return me the label. Now, instead of creating a record directly over here, what I want to do is explore the other action, which was creating that change set request. So again, select the Microsoft Dataverse connector. I'm going to perform a change set request, and in that I want to just put this action. It doesn't allow usually, but let's just quickly add the new row one, and I'm going to look for customer requests again and copy paste everything from this one over there. And the request priority as low again. We'll just copy over the description as well. This time is going to be request number 2, and get rid of this action. But you'll notice that I have added new row 2 over here, and if I open up the compose action, I'll see that I have the outputs add a new row. So either I change the expression, so that's the ideal part, and add an underscore and 2 over here, or I just change the name of this action and rename this to add a new row, and we'll be good to go now. So we'll just quickly run this flow once, and then we'll actually come back and see what's the purpose of using the change set request. So let's say I test, or else, you know what, we'll do it here itself. So I'll remove everything from here because it's a not required field, um, or else we'll come back anyways. So let's just continue as is and test. So you'll see that all the actions in the change set request main action succeeded, and therefore, okay, it has not returned anything to us. Okay, okay, okay. So we're going to look up again and search for that. low thing. So you can directly search low and again copy this thing, edit the flow. In the compose action, what do we have here? Okay, I think we had it right, but probably it's due to it's in the change set. So let's test real quick by the choice field, which was request priority. Ah, haha, body slash. All right, I know the error here. So we missed the body slash over here. We add it back and update. So it's very key when you're playing with this. So we put body slash over here, but if you wanted to do it in a separate way, you can just do it like this also by adding another question mark and placing a square bracket and putting body in between there. But let's just quickly test again with package not received number 3. Okay. Sometimes it takes its own sweet time, and the moment you touch it, it happens. So um, there we go. All right, so you can see that we have the low string now. So basically the trick over here is after your action, if you're creating a flow where you may use something from the dynamic data, but you want to use it from the outputs of the body, and that key value pair or the key is not showing up in dynamic data, you can just run a test record and you'll be able to see what all body is being returned, and then you can just use it as a key over here and build an expression to get the actual label value and so on. Now what we'll do is the actual reason of using the add a new row and using this perform a change set request action. So apologies for the disturbance if there's any. The neighbors are having a party today. I'll add a new row and then what we'll do is um, add another one to update a row, and this time I'm going to use the users table and so not removing everything, but let's just only copy the user ID, and if I come back here in the updater row, I'm going to put this row ID. Now let's say if I remove 2 characters from here, it means that this GUID is not complete, so I purposely want this action to fail. So what we're going to do is just save it as is. We have provided all the inputs and we want the update a row to fail, and we'll see that what change set request does is it first tries to create this add a new row action. After creating that, it tries to update the row that we're trying to update, and if that row does not update, then it rolls back the add a new row action also. So let's test this and run the flow now. And you'll see that the next action has obviously skipped, but you'll see that this got skipped because the change scope, child actions failed. So it says that you don't have all the entire GUID of the user that you want to update, and therefore it failed over here. Now if I edit it again, you'll see that I have an add a new row action over here, but I cannot use the outputs of that into this action. So it won't show up at all because it is not sure that all actions will succeed, and therefore you cannot use the parameters from the previous actions on the same chain set request place here. So that was about the chain set request, and now we'll remove this. We'll get rid of this action here and get this out of the chain set request, delete the chain set request, and let's take a look at our new action, which is relating a row. So relate rows, or first let's unrelate rows, and you'll see that first I have provided the user details over here, and then I'm going to select the table name. So customer requests, and the row ID is going to come from the previous action when we are creating the customer request. Then the relationship type, we need to choose that. So let's refresh this. So okay, it doesn't show up the relationship. So we're going to come back to our data model and go to the customer requests, open up the relationships, and assigned to was the field. So you'll see this is the one we are looking for, along with the prefix. So CRE0A underscore that entire thing. So I'm going to enter a custom value, paste the suffix first, and come back and copy over the prefix CRE0A underscore. So CRE0A and underscore. And then here you're going to actually have to pass the row URL using the OData ID. So it shows it like this. So what we're going to do is go back to one of our previous run histories. So duplicate this, or we can actually find it over here itself. So I'm going to search for my name, and again, yeah. So we have this assigned to value, and but what we'll do is it will actually have the system users as a relationship link. So instead of using the name, we're going to use for system users. Okay, all right, not here, probably somewhere here. Um, all right, all right, all right. So we can also search by using the GUID probably. Hmm. If for some reason you're not able to find it, yeah, there, here we go. So we have the assigned to association link, which is going to copy the entire thing and come back and paste it here. But obviously it's recommended that you don't use a complicated way like this. Just directly use the update rows and it should work. So hopefully this works. Let's test it out once. We're adding a row, and then we have the assigned to, and we're trying to unrelate. So let's go for it. Run, run, run. Okay, there you go. It failed. Let's see. Okay. So we're going to get rid of this part here and see what does it say. Basically, it only needs until the part of record ID. So we're going to save now and test again. Okay. All right. For some reason, this one does not seem to work. I'll get back to you guys on this using a blog post or something. But let's get rid of this one now. And the next action that I wanted to show is accessing data from another environment using our common data, sorry, the Dataverse legacy connector. So for that, what we'll do is I'll just quickly duplicate this tab. So again, one more thing to note is the Dataverse full license and the Dataverse for Teams license. They both are a little bit different. You have restricted capability that comes with the Dataverse for Teams one. So therefore, you may not have all the premium features working. But let's quickly do the Dataverse legacy here. So if I wanted to access the Dataverse for Teams environment data from a regular Dataverse data, it won't allow me to do that. So I'll just quickly do a list rows here. And from the default environment, which is the proper Dataverse environment on this tenant, I'm going to select the accounts table. And in the advanced options, let's say I want to get top, you know, 5 rows only. And in the expand query, I can actually um, get data for the lookup table. So usually what happens is when you're using the list rows action and there's a lookup associated to this accounts table, I'm going to get only the GUID and the primary name column from the associated table. But let's say if you wanted to get something more like, when an account is associated to a customer, so I want to get the customer data like their email address or something like that, I'll just have to write the expand query along with the related table name and then the column name that I want to get. So we'll take a look at that also, but we'll first have to see what all relationships we have on the accounts table. So we're going to just do this and save and test. All right, so we cannot do that because the list rows may not show us the data. So we're going to add and apply to each for the value and then add a compose action to, get the current item from here and finally test. So you'll see that, okay, there's no accounts here, which is why probably it's not showing us any data anyways. But if you wanted to access data from another environment using the legacy connector, you would do that. And I just want to show one really quick thing now. So I'm going to come back to my previous item and um, go to my flows here and create a new flow. So we didn't take a look at any of the triggers working. So I want to do that one real quick. So skip and open up Dataverse and let's select this one when a row is added, modified or deleted. So it's important to see a couple of outputs that this gives us. So you can either choose that when you want to trigger this flow only when a record is created, or when it's deleted or created, updated or created, and so on. These are the options available. And in the outputs, it generally does not give you the condition on which this flow was triggered as dynamic content. So we'll take a look at that SDK message access also. Let's do it at create, and I'm going to name the table as customer requests only, and the scope is going to be organization. So anybody creates this table, it's going to get triggered. Now if you were using the if you wanted to trigger this table only when the record was modified, then you could just select the columns on which you wanted to trigger this flow. Only if that column was modified, then this flow would trigger. So let's put run as process owner, and on the new step I'm going to add a compose action and save everything from here. Save this, come back to my previous flow, or we'll just hit test and force do that. Meanwhile, come here and okay, let's say 35 now, and we've created already so many records. So test. Also, since this is taking a little time to load, a quick another trick is like in this one we're using system users directly and passing the record value. But system users is a system owned table, which is why there's no prefix to it. But if you had another um, table that you have created custom, then you would have to add your publisher prefix there. But as you've seen that this flow has triggered due to creating that record. If I expand the compose action, you'll see the entire JSON here. But in this action, we'll see that it has provided scope as 4 because it identifies that when it's run in organization context, this it translates to the number as 4. And here, if I'm going to search for SDK message, you'll see that it is going to show you that this flow triggered when the item was created. So in case you were using the trigger condition as when the item was created, modified, or deleted, all the three, and you wanted to perform different actions on each trigger. So let's say you copied this part and edit the flow again. I can add a simple switch control over here. So just search for switch and on. So again, what we are going to do is, let's say since it's not available over here, I'm quickly going to put the name field and then copy this, the expression, paste it again, get rid of all of this, and in the name part we're going to put SDK message here. So what we'll do is duplicate this because we'll have to match the case exactly or else it won't identify that. So go back to my flows and select this one, open the run history. Come on. Okay. So this is a relatively new bug that is keeping happening in Flow. So if you wanted to check run history, it takes forever to load, but just go back and open the run history again. It shows up pretty fast. So it's like this. So I'm directly going to copy and in the expression paste it. Now what I can do is uh, put create here, add another switch case that says update, and the last one has delete. So again, in the create and update, you get all the body data also. In delete, you just get the row ID of the row that was deleted. So that's a default function again. Let's save this and try to run it on a previous run itself. So we save some time there. Successful, and you'll see that it went to the case one. So if you were trying to trigger this flow based on, and you just created one single automation that would trigger every time a record was created, updated, deleted, you can use the switch statement and use expressions to get that SDK message and then further proceed with your flow. I'll quickly come back to Teams and check if there are any questions. So um, hey Victor, do we have any questions at this point?
I haven't seen any come through.
Okay.
Actually, there is one from Andre on the compose action example. Um, on the previous example, the compose action was disabled.
Okay, so
Was
this one is probably for the change set request part where we were trying to do that. Is that the one that you're referring to?
Yeah, I think the connector. When you looked at the connector, the compose action was disabled.
Mhm.
So
Okay, so I'll,
yeah, I think that's what it was.
not this one. All right, I think here it is. So um, there was one where the compose action, or it got skipped actually on the run history because the change set request did not get processed. I think it was that one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, and so this was a very basic overview of the CDS, not CDS again, it keeps coming on the tongue, but the Dataverse and the Dataverse legacy connectors, and
Mhm.
what all actions that are available directly as a part of this. Now, apart from this, there's a bunch of ways that you can do another set of actions also. Like, for example, this trigger that I showed you just now, when a record is created, updated, or deleted, it cannot be triggered on a table that has an n is to n relationship. So to trigger a flow whenever an ns to n relationship is invoked. Like, for example, you consider the system table users and the system table teams. So one user can be a part of multiple teams, and similarly, uh, one user can be a part of multiple teams, and one team can have multiple users. So every time you're adding a user to a team, or you're adding a team to a user, either way, you need to trigger a flow on an n is to n relationship table that gets created in Dataverse. So for that, it does not even recognize that table. And what you can do is you can create a webhook workflow, and you can get started with that. So I have a couple of articles where you can, do a lot of custom action building using Power Automate and Dataverse. So this is one example of that, and how to trigger a flow where every time an NS2N relationship is invoked on Dataverse. So it's basically a webhook that we've created here and added a trigger condition where this flow would trigger every time a user is added to a team, and we're just looking at that. And the webhook can be created using the XRM toolbox. So we'll keep looking at this as we advance in the Zero to Hero course.
Perfect. Now that's very good. I know that not everybody that is in the lesson today, or maybe not everybody that is in the lesson today has been exposed to playing with JSON and output and inspecting that. But it's something that you have to get used to. Power Automate is advertised as a low code or no code tool. This is essentially the low code part of the low
Yes.
code strategy. I mean, you have to find your ways a lot of time inspecting the the output to see where the error lies, and then and look for solutions. Yash, is there anywhere that you want to point folks to when it comes to getting started in learning a little bit about inspecting JSON? You showed a website where you use to look at the formatted JSON to inspect the results.
Yes, so this is the one, the codebeautify.org. Basically, you just Google beautify JSON, and there's a bunch of editors and software that you can use. I like this one, and there's one more where you can actually see if what changed into JSON text that you provide. So that will be best to identify small errors if you're trying to construct a JSON when you're using Power Automate, or you already have a JSON and you want to read something. That this is the tool that you can check out.
Okay. I know that we are past time, but
Okay.
if folks could give us maybe a couple more minutes. And Yash, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
If we could look at a action that lists all records for a particular table.
Okay.
In, in that action, let's just see how the connector works with fetch XML, for example. I
Yes.
think,
Yes. Sure.
based on my experience, this is one very common scenario where somebody says, a record is changed, or I have a flow that's going to be triggered by schedule, and I want to list all records that fall into a particular criteria. So I might speak over you as you are lecturing here, Yash. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
have
Yes.
this table, customer request, and then all of the properties here are actually set by commands that you would see in the Dataverse web API. So everything that you see here, we can find documentation online on how to construct. Example, if you want to filter rows, you have to enter a no data style filter expression. What that means is you have to have the internal name of your column equals, if you want to use the equal operator, it's going to be EQ. If it's greater than, it's something else. If it's greater or equals to, it's another operator. So in order to be able to write a filter here, you have to refer to, again, to the Dataverse Web API filter operands for this particular area. And then the same goes for sort by, or if you want to expand the query. All of this stuff, though, if you start using these filters and you have questions on it, you can always query or Google, give me an example of an expand query for Dataverse Web API, and then you get information on. Now, if you have a query that bridges through multiple entities in Dynamics or joins to multiple entities in Dynamics, and you know how to write it in a Web API fashion, you can always write an XML query, place it here, and the connector will do the job for you. Now, the catch is to read the values coming back from the query. If you're doing joins, you're going to have to play with the output of the JSON to see what you're getting back. Does everybody understand where I'm coming from? If you do, you can give a like or a heart, or if you don't understand what I'm talking about, you can put a comment here. We'll try to answer your question in maybe 30 seconds. If not, we can address it on the next session or lesson. Sorry, but again, I mean, this is an action of the Dataverse connector that I use the most. I mean, there is of course the ones that Yash talked about: create triggers, update triggers, so on and so forth. But if you're starting in here, I'd say look at these actions though, because I mean, this will help you get a lot of the job done. All right. And if I went too fast and you still have questions, you can shoot me a message or an email, and we'll try to get answers to you. All right. Sorry, Yash. We took 4 minutes from your available time.
No,
we'll,
no problem at all.
we'll make sure to send a gift when this is all said and done. All right. Well,
Yeah.
everybody, this is the lesson for today. Again, lots of good stuff here. I will post this video on the YouTube channel so you can review it later, and you know how to find us. If you have additional questions or concerns, we'll do our best to provide you information. Yash, you have any last comments you wanna
Um,
to talk about?
I just add one more. So while experimenting with this, I would highly recommend that you check out the Power Apps app in a day and the Power Automate in a day training material also. And if you still get stuck, always try to reach out on the Power Users forums. There's plenty of existing questions that can give you ideas. And also, if you have a particular problem, you can just post over there, and there's plenty of people willing to help as well.
All right, this is awesome. Okay, folks, if you go to dantas.ca /0-2-hero, you find information about how to get to connect to this lesson again, and then you have the links to the YouTube channel for a previous lesson. Make sure though that you share a lot of, sorry, a lot of love to Yash for taking on this lesson today and the one hopefully next week we'll see, because he's presenting at 11:30 p.m. ISV time, Indian time. So just share the love, make sure you like his stuff, subscribe, make comments, do whatever you need to do, but make sure you express love for what he's doing for us today. Again, thank you so much, Yash. Thank you everybody who's in this call, and we'll see you next week hopefully.
Okay.
All right, take care. Bye
Awesome.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.